Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Gyle. I'm delivering this live from Melbourne, Australia. It's currently 9:15 p.m. here. We're on UTC class 11. So thank you very much for listening in to this presentation. So I'm going to be delivering a talk about OSINT for good. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the practical applications of OSINT, and along the way, before I start, I will be discussing what is OSINT, what is Intel or intelligence. Okay. So just this is going to be what I'm going to be covering. So going to have like an overview of intelligence, okay, and OSINT, and what are the different applications. And then at the last ones, like I'm going to be talking about the use of this for improving our personal online safety. So this is who am I? So basically, this is just like so that you know a little bit something about me. So currently, I work as a cyber threat analyst or cyber research assistant. So I'm physically in Melbourne, Australia, but my teammates and the entire office is in New Zealand, and I'm the only Australia-based employee that they have. Okay, and so in terms of educational background, so I got my graduate certificate in incident response from the Science Institute, and then I got my master's in cybersecurity with a specific focus on digital forensics from the UNSW in Canberra in ADFA, so that's the Australian Defence Force Academy. So I volunteer for a lot of different community events. So I'm like generally hanging around different Discord channels, different Slack. So I'm in the WiCSME Slack. So if you have like any other questions after this presentation, feel free to reach out to me in the Slack. Okay, and I do a lot of public speaking. Okay, because I like sharing what I know. And if you're in Twitter, feel free to also DM me. There's my Twitter account at GyleDC. Okay, so let me just start here. Okay, in terms of I need to clarify like certain definition and the types of intelligence. Okay. So this particular definition of intelligence comes from the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency. So when we talk about intelligence, so this is not the definition coming from psychology. Okay, and I forgot to also say earlier that I trained as a psychologist and then I shifted to tech during the early part of this century, and I focus on InfoSec during this particular decade. So this is when we talk about intelligence, we're not talking about like human intelligence here, but it is in terms of a way of like collecting and processing the information about a particular entity, and this entity is a competitive entity or the entity and its agents. Okay? And then this information is needed by an organization or a particular group to make sure that they are able to secure themselves and make sure that their well-being is protected. So you have here, a particular group that wants to make sure that they secure themselves, but they want to gather information about, potential, attackers or adversaries. This is the definition of intelligence. This is the classic definition of intelligence. Now, when we talk about sources of intelligence, so once again, this is the classic intelligence sources. So first, you have what is called the HUMINT, which is a shortened form of human intelligence collection. So think of it as, interpersonal, like for example, someone and this person has information about that particular group. So you are gathering that information based on your interpersonal relationship with that person. Sometimes in the classic, Intel source definition, your contacts, sometimes they're called assets. Okay, so your assets, or it could be like you have agents, and then you collect those information from those human assets. So this is what is called in. And then we also have what is called GeoInt. So this is a form of it's collecting intelligence in terms of geospatial information. So think of it, it's like a satellite information. So it's about geographic, and then we're talking about like location. So it could be that you're doing research about, like let's just say you're a researcher in terms of an environmental organization, and you want to understand the changes that has happened, or it could be that there are certain, group that has gone beyond their mandate. It could be that they're supposed to be mining in a certain area, and then turns out that they're also like doing in other areas. So you may be like looking at what geo in kind of sources, or looking at satellite maps. And then the third type of the classic intelligence source is called MASINT. So it comes from measurement and then signature intel. So when we talk about measurement and signature intel, we're talking about, could be radar signatures, or it could be you are analyzing nuclear detonation signatures. So this is what we call MASINT. And then we have OSINT. So OSINT, before we had the internet and all those things, basically OSINT means open source intel. So this could be, public records, or it could be like those like in the libraries, or now that we have the internet that's very prevalent, so there's a lot of source intel available online. Now the fourth type of class intelligence source is called SIG. Okay, so this is the intelligence, okay, that is gathered from signal intercepts. So when we say signal intercepts, it could be that it's about mobile communication, or there's like a tapping on the comms line, So this is all about signals. And then we have what is called all source. So that means like any available intel from every source that is focused on the particular subject or topic that you are, doing your research. So called all source. So for the sake of this particular presentation that I'm doing now, I'm going to be focusing on OSINT. And particularly when I talk about OSINT, it's going to be those open source intel that we get from the internet. So I will not cover the traditional like doing like public records, or archival research, going to the library. So I will not cover that. I'll be just covering like the information that we can gather via internet. Now, for those who are like currently watching this live, so you see on your screen is a photo of a beautiful iceberg. So I'm not sure whether you've seen the some of like the like articles about like when we talk about the internet, wherein we have like the surface web, we have the deep web, and then we have the dark web. And typically, when those three parts of the internet is actually discussed, the iceberg example is or illustration is always used. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so we have, think of it like the surface web. This is something that we actually see. So when we say surface web, these are things that are part of the internet wherein it's publicly accessible to anyone. As long as you have a browser, you don't need any fancy type of connection, just as long as you have a web browser, and then you can just like go to any website. And another thing about surface web is that these are searchable, or you have like crawlers, that have crawled the different websites, and these are presented to us when we use search engines and we use certain terms. We find this information. So these are all what we call the surface web. So something that we easily see. So that's why we have here, like at the top of like we have iceberg. And then somewhere around here, towards like the surface of the water and below the water, there is that point wherein it represents what we call you have the deep web. So deep web, that means it's not something that's publicly accessible. You have to use login. So typically when we talk about deep web, we're talking about resources, information that are in the, let's just say, the databases, and in order for you to access that, you have to have a login. So typically when we think about OSINT in terms of deep web, these are information that are hidden behind login. So it could be like you have your Facebook account that you need to log in order to access your account. Now, depending on how your social media account is set up, it could be that things that you are posting online and you think that it's hidden behind a login actually being shown to the public. So sometimes, like for example, you have a LinkedIn account wherein you could have set it so that it is searchable via search engines. So when we look at the definition of deep web, so LinkedIn is different deep web because you have to have a login. But the content that you publish, depending on your settings, may actually be searchable, and it is now in the surface web. That's why I said, like when we talk about the illustration, when you're doing this, this comparison, deep web for this particular illustration is around this area. Okay, I don't know whether you can see my mouse. It's just above the water and then a little bit under that. That's what you have, like talk about deep web. And then we have dark web. So for dark web, you need to have special, setup. You have to have like a specific like browser. You have to have like Tor. So this is like this is what we call the dark web. I'm not gonna be covering doing OSINT via dark web because that's a totally different, discussion. There's a long discussion about that. So what I'm going to be covering is like OSINT in terms of deep web and the surface web. Okay. So if everybody's like clear with that one, okay, I don't see any questions in the chat or all those things. I'm going to go. Now, there's something that you may not know. Okay. Without really like understanding what OSINT is, you're probably already using OSINT or you're already relying on OSINT. For example, when you decided to choose or select what school or university that you wanted to go to, like for example, your parents asked you like, so where do you want to study? And before you made the decision, you actually it could be like you ask people or you went online and searched for school, or it could be that you're looking for scholarships and you want to make sure that, oh, I want to go to, let's just say, to the UK, or I want to go to Canada, or I want to like go to Australia or like New Zealand. And then of course you're going to do your research. So what you're basically gathering out there, these are already like open source intel, or it could even be that you have a specific area in mind and you want to focus on that particular major, and you want to know what's like the best school that offers this this particular field or this area of expertise. So you're already looking at online reputation. You look at what other students have said about this, or it could be like other students are like saying that, oh, this is my experience with the university. So you're basically using. And then second, it could be like, when you're doing job hunting, so you're already using OSINT, like for example, you look for like the companies with the openings, and before you actually apply, you find out like more about what does this company do. And then for those people who are very concerned about making sure that there's a good fit in terms of the corporate culture, they may also be looking at what information shared by employees in that company. So they may be looking at, let's just say, Glassdoor reviews about that company. Or it could be that you want to look at the industry trends. Like, for example, when you're preparing for the interview, you have something to say about the company and industry trends, you're already doing open source intel gathering. And of course, lastly, it could be a potential life partner. So it could be that somebody introduced someone to you. You don't know that guy. Okay, and you want to know, like, I wonder whether this guy is okay or something. So you start like, searching in a different social media, platforms out there. So it could be that, find out more about this person. Or it could be that someone said, like a cousin of yours said, oh, I want you to meet this particular guy. And before you say yes to your cousin, like, yeah, I want to go on like a date with that guy, you sort of like do some background checking. So congratulations, you're already doing OSINT. Okay. Now, so for this presentation, okay, so I'm going to be talking about the applications of OSINT. So there are a lot of, applications. So earlier, I've already talked about, you probably used that before, but in the specific domain of InfoSec or cybersecurity, there are applications. So there's like penetration testing, cyber threat intelligence, crowdsource, and then there's like, you can do some volunteer work using OSINT for good. And then lastly, also help you in terms of improving your personal threat model. So I'll be going that. Okay. Now, so pen test use case number 1. Okay, so it could be that you're a junior, pen tester, and your boss told you, okay, we need to find out like what are the different subdomains for this particular domain of our client. So there are open source tools that you can use. So one of them is Sublister, where you just put in there, the command and then the domain, and it will enumerate those subdomains for you. So this is a good tool to use, for example, if you want to understand what are the potential attack surface. It could be that a particular company has a main domain, but they may have other subdomains that are not adequately protected. So if it's part of your, scope of work wherein you are going to find out what are these other subdomains and the potential, attack surface, you can find out by using this. Now, okay, other use for pen testing. Okay, of course, reconnaissance. Okay, so reconnaissance is like the first phase. As soon as you get your scope of work, you do your recon. You try to find out as much as you can about your target organization, meaning it's basically the client that asks you to do the pen test on them. So, for example, you are asked to do a physical pen test. OSINT, okay, is very useful here because there are a lot of things that are being posted online. So let's look at my slide, my presentation towards the right side. There are two icons, there. One on the left and then the one on the right. So over here on the left, does anybody know what is this? I'm sure you know this. This particular app is what? Starts with letter I. So it's what? Instagram. Okay. What about this? It looks like a note, like, musical note, but it's not. It's actually TikTok. Okay. So the great thing about, a lot of people is that, they have a lot of social media apps and they love sharing information about themselves. So what can you do? You can actually leverage on those things. For example, you want to know what is the office layout. So you start finding out who are the employee working for this company. So start looking at LinkedIn. And then from LinkedIn, you find out that, oh, these are the people working for that company. Now I'm going to find out, there's like other tools that you can use to find out whether they have accounts in this particular, social media platform. So you can have like photos of their office layout, or for example, you're gonna do what is called black teaming. You try to impersonate someone. You look at the lanyards of people like in the office, especially. There's this trend wherein people who are new to the company, they first day at work, and then they have their selfie, and then they have the lanyard or the uniform, and then in the background you have the computers, and they're all switched on, and then you basically have information on their lanyard design. We're gonna do back teaming wherein you're gonna be doing a physical intrusion test. You can impersonate them by printing the same lanyard, and then operating system. You see at the background, they're using this Windows version, or there's other apps there or application, and then you can impersonate someone. You call their IT help desk or something. So you can do that using like OSINT techniques. Now the other is like, for example, you are tasked to do a wireless pen test. Over here towards the right, you can see wiggle.net. So this is a very useful site. Why? Because a lot of people all over the world are actually contributing to this site and providing what? SSIDs. So these are the wireless network names. So why is this useful for you if you're doing a wireless pen test? So before you actually even go to the location of your client side, you already have an idea, okay, their SSIDs has been actually cataloged by someone, and it's in Google.net. So you already know what is the wireless ID. And you can just set up your Pineapple or your Mana or whatever wireless pen testing tool that you're using to actually use that SSID. Okay, so these are like one of the use cases for using OSINT. Okay. Another is, so I consider myself a blue teamer. So I work in the SOC environment. So I also do like not just SOC monitoring, response. We do like incident response, a kind of. So one of the use case here is for CTI, Cyber Threat Intel. So using, let's just say Twitter, okay, you can follow researchers who are, providing information about vulnerability or the research findings. You can find out like what are the latest CVEs. Sometimes some of those proof of concept for a CVE, they get published immediately online, and there's like a Twitter account that says, oh, POC is already live or like already available for this particular vulnerability. And then the other thing is that there's a lot of information sharing that's happening online. So if you need IOCs, indicators of compromise, so you have this, you can follow, let's just look for hashtag threat hunting. Okay. Now, the interesting thing here is that if you're doing this kind of OSINT social media, it's also called SOCMINT, social media intelligence. You're gathering intel from social media. Okay. Now, okay. The other use case for OSINT is actually helping find missing calls. So there's this organization that I volunteer for. It's called Trace Labs. So they're a Canadian company. No, not a company. They're a Canadian-based non-profit organization. So it's not a company, like it's a non-profit organization. So there are activities on a monthly basis wherein there's what is called a CTF. It's a capture the flag, but it's a different type of capture the flag. Instead of getting, like solving puzzles or challenges, you actually have a list of missing people, and you find out information about them that are available online. And there are rules and regulations, and you have to follow those. You're not supposed to contact their loved ones because that may re-traumatize them. So you're just gathering, you're basically doing what is called passive intel gathering. So you can, volunteer, go to the website, tracelabs.org. So there's a Slack, and then there's also an ongoing ops wherein on a monthly basis, there are cases that are selected by Trace Labs. These are based on community submissions, like there's like a guideline, and then people help find information about this. And all this information that are collected are provided to law enforcement agents. Hopefully find, new, info, evidence, or let's just say new lead for a missing person. So this is one of the use cases for OSINT. So once again, this is that. Okay, another use case here is, let's just say, finding info about an email. So this example is, for example, in Trace Lab, when you're looking for information about a missing person. So there's this, by the way, all the screenshots from the different tools that I'm showing, this actually comes from the virtual machine that is provided by Trace Lab. Trace Labs has community, a vibrant community, and there is a virtual machine that was created for doing OSINT investigation. So these screenshots here are from that particular virtual machine. So you have this, info guy if you need more information about an email account, or if you want to find out other information about username or email, there's also Buster. Okay, now I go. This is the part wherein something that I feel strongly about. So this is another use case for OSINT. I'm talking about personal threat model. So what I wanted to do after this presentation, or let's just say after the conference today has ended, Google yourself. Okay? Find out what is available out there for you. Check the following. Check, have I been pawned? It could be that your account has been involved in a data breach and your password may be floating out there in the internet. So find out. If you find out that your account has been involved in a data breach, change all your passwords and make sure you don't reuse passwords, and make sure that you use complex passwords and you change your security questions. Make sure that you also implement MFA, multi-factor authentication. Okay, so other things, you can also look at what's my name. So that's one of the websites that you can check. Okay, and then check the geolocation settings of your mobile phone, because you may not know it, but that there is geolocation wherein every time you take a photo and you post it online, there's an EXIF data that like has the longitude, latitude about the photo. You don't want to expose your location, online to other people. And what you can do also is like you can do a reverse image search. Like for example, you have photos online of yourself and you cannot remove that anymore. Check whether it has been reused in other websites. You've got to protect yourself. Okay. Now, so okay, now uh, please remember that everything that I've covered here, hopefully you've learned something and you are able to apply OSINT for good. So everything that you have learned, always remember that this is something that you can use to improve your personal threat model, making sure that you have an idea of what is the information published out there about yourself. And if it's not something that's like to your liking, or it could be that it gives out a lot of personal details out there, you can request those websites to please remove your accounts. Okay, so please make sure that you do OSINT on yourself to improve your online personal safety. And then, of course, the other use of OSINT for good. If you want, please come and volunteer with Trace Labs. We need diversity, and diversity in terms of cultural background, educational background, diversity in terms of language. Because it's not just people who speak English who goes missing. There's a lot of people coming like from different countries who go missing. So we need your help. So I have like a few more minutes left here. So if you have any questions, please, post it in the chat. Or somebody from like the crew here will actually put it in the group chat here so I can see. So these are my sources. I love this one, this superhero kid. Okay. And then if you have like any questions, feel free to reach out to me either in the Slack of WiCSME or reach out to me via DM, Twitter, it's at Gyle DC. So if you're interested, there's actually a write-up from Trend Micro regarding hunting threats on Twitter. So this is write-up. If you want to volunteer for Trace Labs, their website. And then there's somebody who's a volunteer also with Trace Labs, collected a lot of these OSINT, online stuff, like podcasts, resources. So, you may want to like bookmark it. I'm going to pop it in the Slack channel. I'm going to share these links, okay, so that you don't have to take a screenshot or something and then type it up. I'm going to be popping it over there. Now, there is a question here. Considering the privacy noise around social media sites such as Facebook, Google, are there any privacy concerns of OSINT? Yes, that's a very good question. So I said earlier, Google yourself, do OSINT on yourself. So basically, you are trying to improve your own security, your security posture. You don't go around, researching other people, unless they have their permission, or if you are part of the Trace Lab, community, there is a particular, there are cases of missing person that are published, and these missing persons, there's a report with the law enforcement agency, and the law enforcement agency has asked Trace Labs, please help us find, information online about this missing person. So there's a very specific mandate. You don't go about like being vigilant and using OSINT tools and techniques to go get information about other people. Okay, so you have to be careful, and the things in terms of like the Trace Lab, whenever there's any events, okay, anything that is found in the context of that particular event only stays there. We're not supposed to be like announcing in social media, oh, we found this information about this missing person. No, because all this information are collected. There's an intel report that is created, and then these are submitted to law enforcement. Okay, and then once again, like what I pointed out with the pen testing use case, you don't go about doing the OSINT stuff without like, let's just say a scope of work. There's no, there has to be a project. Okay. So any other, questions? I think I have like 2 more minutes. Can I have her here? So I think there's like no more questions. Okay. So you can also turn that question around regarding privacy concerns of OSINT. If you're concerned about other people using these OSINT techniques, especially if, let's just say, knock on wood, you have an online stalker. So that means you gotta really protect the information that you share out there, because potentially if you have an online stalker, the online stalker may actually be using these OSINT techniques to find out more information about yourself. And that's why earlier I mentioned about checking the geolocation settings of your phone. You may want to just like switch it off so that the photos does not have the geolocation tags. Okay, so there's like just give some tips, then we start wrapping it up. Yeah, okay, so that's all. Okay, so I actually have like so I mentioned just do your OSINT on yourself, protect yourself, okay, and make sure that if there's any information that's out there about you, you have control of it. If you could lock down your accounts and make sure that if not under your control, if it's like a different site, request, because that is your right to request that please take down those information. Okay. So thank you very much. Okay, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Okay, and take care wherever you are. Stay safe, be well, and take care. Be kind to one another. Good night.